what my father did really well and what has sort of instructed me in the business is be transparent, like no secrets, throw everything out there. Whenever you hit a difficult time, whether it's in a family business, whether it's with a customer, if you've been transparent throughout, then I think it's easier to get through the challenging times. So succession can be tough, but we talked about it, we planned it as best we could, and eventually.
Was it hard for him to
put me in, coach.
A quick interruption to remind you to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast so we can get your feedback and know how to make it better. Hey, it's Ari. Welcome to the next episode of the Made in America podcast. I'm really excited for today's guest, Molly Kellogg from Hubbard Hall. Molly, thank you so much for coming on today.
My pleasure, Ari.
Well, listen, it's the Made in America podcast, Molly. So we always start off with the same two questions. What do you make and why do you make it?
So, Ari, I'm afraid it might be a conversation stopper. We're in the chemical business. We make specialty chemicals, and they make metal products. They can make them a nice color, they can keep them from rusting, or they can make them more functional. So that's what we do. And why do we make them? Because anything, if you looked around and touched anything that was made of metal, if it didn't go through a chemical process, you couldn't use it.
Is that right?
It's true.
Because
metal in and of itself will corrode or erode or not look pretty over time.
So if we want it to look good, be functional, not rust, have the right kind of properties to work with other metals, it needs to be coated with something.
Yeah, and I was going to steal I think it's the old DuPont line, the chemistry for better living, but it's kind of true.
Is it really?
It's kind of true, and it's everything low tech, from we're looking at a little spinny top there to something that would go in a phone or a satellite, but anything touching metal. And every once in a while we get into some water treatment, so the water that you're drinking here might have gone through some of our chemistry.
The water itself, not the cup that the water's in.
No, that's ceramic.
Right,
if
exactly.
If we're metal, yes. This is ceramic, so no.
So not so much.
No.
Well, for those people that are that like to listen and not view like I do, Molly's been really gracious to bring some examples, which we will definitely get into. There's I'm going to say extremely old. Would you say that? Extremely old can?
130 years old.
There's a can here that's 130 years old, so we'll definitely get into that. We've got a slinky, we've got a corkscrew, we've got a top, a coaster, and then a multifunction Allen wrench tool.
Cool.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yep.
So we got a bunch of different stuff, and I absolutely want to get into that. And I think the story of Hubbard Hall, with what wasn't even called Hubbard Hall in 1849,
correct,
when it started in Waterbury. But I think there's a really interesting history and background there, which I want to get into. But I want to start with you. And so we know why Hubbard Hall exists and what they do.
Right.
Why do you do it, and how did you get into it?
Nepotism? No, Hubbard Hall is an old family business. I'm sixth generation in the company, and probably had no intention of going into the business. I'm a literature major. I run a chemical company and never taken a chemistry course, so be careful. But eventually came into the business after business school and found out how fun it could be to make chemicals, to sell chemicals, and then to see how other things are made.
So you went to school for a literature major,
yes,
but then still ended up in business school.
Yes.
So did you always feel like you had an aptitude or desire to go to business, or did you just say literature is not going to pay the bills?
No, I think it was, and I'd worked in the company over summer vacations. I'd worked in customer service. I'd worked in manufacturing. I've made some of the stuff that we sell. And so spent those 5 years after college floating around working in politics, doing all sorts of random things, and then thought MBA. And then wasn't quite sure I was going to come back into the family business. I went to school in France, so I was thinking about coming back to Waterbury, and Paris, Waterbury, couldn't quite make that
Very
equation
similar.
work.
They both have rivers, I think, and buildings,
old buildings,
and roads,
hundreds of years old, right?
So it's like almost the same thing.
It is. And but we ended up buying a company just north of Boston, and I came back to run that. So it was a nice way to get back into the family business.
So do you have siblings? And where are you in the sibling?
I'm second, and I've got 3 siblings.
So you're the middle.
I'm the middle child.
And was there expectation like growing up? Were both of your parents involved in the business? Just your father?
No, just my father. And when I worked there in the summers, my grandfather worked there too. And so it had gone for 6 generations, father to son, or I think there was a son-in-law in there. And I think my father was really smart in never forcing me to go into the business. And of my siblings, it's probably the only, it made some sense that I was going to take this path. One of my brothers, who's a special needs guy, still works in the company, does some filing for us. But other than that,
that's great.
Yeah.
So there was not really pressure from your dad. It was sort of out there. Was it inviting, or was it just not even really talked about? How did it sort of?
No, it's a good question. It was inviting. It was out there. It gave me opportunities to come see all different parts of the business. And I'm such a contrarian that if he'd ever said, you're going to work in the business,
you would have gone somewhere else.
I'd still be on the Eiffel Tower somewhere. I'd still be on that other river in another country.
Yeah, fair enough. And so you decided to come back. So what happened? Did you bought this business in Boston?
Yep.
And did your dad sort of reach out and say, hey, Molly, we got this business. Think it'd be great for you to run it? Like, how did that?
Yeah, and I was trying to find work. Nobody would hire me, so I think I was just unemployable. Most of my friends from business school went on to great jobs at McKinsey or Goldman, and I guided bike trips for a year because no one would hire me. So finally, my dad hired me. That's
where the nepotism comes in.
That's where the nepotism comes in. And so it gave me an opportunity to work in the family business and do it at a different location, so I could kind of figure it out on my own. I could, succeed or fail on my own, and that was a tremendous opportunity.
And so, well, then I think we're now maybe getting into some of the background. So let's rewind all the way back to 1849. Neither of us were around, but hopefully we've got some history.
Yeah.
So in 1849, the business wasn't called Hubbard Hall at all. What was it called?
It was called Apothecaries Hall, and it was a little building downtown Waterbury. It had a soda fountain. It sold paint, cocaine, headache powders, and primarily fertilizers. And the business grew serving the Connecticut industry of the time, which was agricultural. So here's our cattle spray that we're looking at, did a lot of fertilizers. And then
so for the people that can't see it, it's really interesting. I mean, it's what you would sort of think of as a really old can. Honestly, it's even more fancy is not maybe the right word, but maybe more industrial than I would have even expected for 1849.
Yeah.
It certainly looks manufactured. It's got a screw-on top and even a little pouring spigot, right?
I know.
Which is really
we were
kind of
always very advanced.
Clearly, it is trademark registered, Liberty Cattle Spray. What is cattle spray?
Do you know, I think it might have just been gasoline that they'd spray on the cows. I mean, back in the day when people didn't know what the good chemicals were and the bad chemicals were, how to use them, it was just to get the bugs off the cattle, and so they'd spray them with any kind of solvent that would kill the bugs and leave the cattle standing.
I mean, there's a diagram on the front. I'm not sure if it's exactly a how-to, but it does show I'll call it a gentleman farmer spraying cattle with the spray. So. Right. There you go. Anyway, sorry, apologize.
And it worked.
And it did work, yeah. So we've got a little Apothecaries Hall in downtown Waterbury that's selling everything from cocaine to cattle spray and many things in between.
Right, and the second building is still there. It's like the old Flatiron building in New York. It's a triangular building. If you've been in downtown Waterbury, there's a Dunkin' Donuts in it now, but it still says Apothecaries Hall.
Does it really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
And so that's cool. So cattle spray, fertilizers, and then when Waterbury became the brass capital of the world during World War I, we got into industrial chemicals, and that's been our product line since then.
So the business really changed gears and got a lot more industrial, probably in part because agriculture started to kind of decline as a general thing. In Connecticut, right? Not as many people needed to grow food. So on. So then where's the Hubbard Hall come from?
The name?
The name, yeah.
It's a little bit of a mystery. I've dug back through, I've got these big, massive books that are written in paper that I can go through the whole history of the company for 179 years. In 1953, we merged with a bunch of other companies, one of whom was Rogers and Hubbard. And for whatever reason, I don't know what happened to Rogers. I don't know why Hubbard. But Hubbard Hall was born, and there it's been.
And there it's been ever since. So the conversion from this into chemicals led to some other expansions. So, what was the Boston business, and how did that sort of tie in?
So still chemicals. It's all chemicals. And in that business, we are primarily distribution into the high-tech industry. So semiconductors we talked about. I could go to our customers who are manufacturers, obviously. From our plant in Massachusetts, there's one who makes chips that go in accelerometers that go in your Wii. There's a company that makes little dental implants. And then there's a company that's plating the head of a missile or something. So pretty diverse customer base, but again, chemicals used in metal finishing.
So let's talk a little bit about that, because I think chemicals, and you and I talked about this briefly kind of in prep for this interview, was that, I don't know that people really understand the role of chemicals. And I think let's say it doesn't have a very positive connotation in sort of the public zeitgeist, right? And, you and I talked about people remember sort of the rubber factory smell in Waterbury and down sort of Route 8, where both of us had spent some time in years past, and, different color rivers, Naugatuck River, being unusable and so on. And so I think from a lot of that stuff, chemicals have a bad rap, but you also make the point, which I think is a really good one, that the life that we all lead today and the things we take for granted, from our iPhones, our Nintendo Wiis, our laptops, the cars that we drive, the microphones you and I are using, and so many other things, my Apple Watch.
I won't tap it again.
Yeah, all rely on these chemicals. Our modern life is impossible without chemicals. So just maybe talk a little bit about that and how you think people should view the chemical business.
I mean, I would think two ways. One is chemicals can be bad, and chemicals poorly used are they're a problem for the environment and the health. However, chemicals properly used do make our life better, and all the conveniences that you just talked about, and those are sort of the durable goods things. We talked about water can be in there. The beer that we drink goes through a chemical process, so it's necessary for the modern conveniences. But I think my goal for the business is to get it onto generation number 7. And generation number 7 is really concerned about our planet and our environment. So been thinking about, as we grow our business, how do we reduce this is a strategy that may put us out of business, by the way, but how do we help our customers use less chemistry? Because I think they don't necessarily want to use our chemistry, but they want to turn that slinky black, or they want to make that corkscrew nice and shiny, or you want your semiconductor not to short out. Along the way, how do we help them, again, use the chemistry in a more efficient way so that the impact on the environment is less? So not all good, not all bad, complicated. You got to be smart and responsible.
Is environmental planning and how you deal with like the excess chemicals, is that an important part of what you guys are doing at Hubbard Hall in the business?
Yeah, huge. And some of that we were forced into before we knew that what was bad, right? And then EPA came along. Actually, in 1991, when the Clean Air Act came out, our number one product was something called 1,1,1-trichloroethane. Number one product, and was regulated out of existence over a period of time. So it was a holy shit moment. What are we going to do? But being a small company, we could say, okay, we can develop a cleaner. So we went from a purchased product to a cleaner that we made that could do pretty much the same thing and have less impact on the environment. And same thing looking forward. I was meeting with one of our chemical engineers yesterday, looking at, as we do product development of the future, what's our target for taking out the bad actors in those formulations, or how do we develop products that may use less resource when they're used? So it can be used for our customers who make these things, electricity is their biggest cost, utilities. If we can find a chemistry that operates at lower temperature, then that reduces their impact too. So it's part of our future planning because of what I believe, and then again, thinking about the next generation.
So talking about the chemicals, do you make the chemicals, buy the chemicals, store the chemicals? Like,
yes,
how does the whole business, all the above. So how does it work? What's like the value add that Hubbard Hall brings to the market?
So it is a little bit of everything. So you could use an analogy. We're sort of like a supermarket of chemicals, and the stuff that we just buy and resell would be like your milk and your butter and your bread. It's a commodity. Lots of other people make them, and our value add is convenience. So then we take the commodities and we add, maybe it's the potato salad, the salad bar in the middle, our specialty chemicals, which is the growth part of our business. And those are our special formulations that are performance in nature. And again, looking at this black slinky may turn it black. So that's what we make. If you came to our facility in Waterbury, our facility in South Carolina, you'd see these big old vats of chemicals. We mix different ingredients to come out with a specialty chemical that's performance in nature.
So does that mean that does a customer come to you and sort of say, Molly, we've got this problem? Do they come to you and say, we're doing this, we want to do it better? Like,
Right.
how does that work?
I mean, that's exactly right. And I think where we're really good is the customer comes to us and says, I like the cleaner I have, but I want to take out this, or I want it to last longer. And then we work with the customer to figure out, give him the product that he needs. At times, we are proactively trying to anticipate the products that people will need. So we talked about lean a little bit, and we've got a chemical that takes 8 steps down to 1 in a cleaning process. So think about it, if you're a manufacturer, you've got 8 different tanks. If you can use 1, well, that's kind of cool, right?
That's 7 less tanks, 7 less
Sold.
steps.
Right.
Yes, sign me up.
Not
Exactly.
as simple as it sounds, but
no, it doesn't sound very simple at all. So if I'm working at Hubbard Hall, what are the kind of people that work there? I mean, so you said chemical engineers. I mean,
Yep.
tell me about like what it looks like.
Yeah, it's a mix. So we've got more recently we've been hiring chemies and chemists, because we think our value add to our customers is to be able to put somebody other than me who knows chemicals on site to help the customer.
Chemies?
Chemical engineer.
Got it.
Right. So that's.
I'm not down with the chemical lingo, Molly.
Yeah, I feel really good that I can say that being a compliment major.
Yeah, you came right off like.
I practiced before I came into the studio.
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay,
it looks good.
So that's our technical staff, and then we've got production staff. So we've got drivers, we've got warehousemen, we've got the guys who work up on the mezzanine mixing the chemicals, and sales, customer service, marketing. Yeah, 97 people, and
keeping everybody busy.
Yeah.
So let's just so the company sort of grew. It sounds like changed from a really, I mean, Apothecaries Hall sounds like a very local, yokel type of place, right? Just serving local people, kind of walk in off the street, and then sort of the Hubbard then becomes Hubbard Hall, and then you guys acquired a business in Massachusetts. So like, what was the strategy behind that besides looking for something for Molly to do?
Because no one would hire Molly.
Because we couldn't hire Molly. We should buy something and get Molly a shot at it. But besides that, what was sort of the thinking behind that in terms of the strategy of the business?
Well, we've made acquisitions along the way. In some ways, our business, we're not necessarily the smartest company, but we see industry changing. So then we are small enough and flexible enough to react. So Connecticut goes from an agrarian economy to industrial. Okay, we'll start with industrial chemicals. And then manufacturers in the Northeast moved to the South. And we said, okay, we'll move to the South. And then they start going to Malaysia. So we start shipping to Malaysia. So in some ways, we've reacted to where our customers have gone. And then along the way, we make acquisitions to shore up our product line. So if our customers want, the milk, the bread and the butter, and they also need some jam. If we don't have the jam, then maybe we buy a company
that makes jam.
That makes the jam, right?
Got it.
It's not, it's not rocket science, just pretty basic stuff. And we just made an acquisition, a little company in Chicago, outside of Chicago, called Arbitech. And interesting, as we're trying to think about, again, how do we help our customers use less chemistry and get better results? And my board still hasn't thrown me out yet, but they might. But this is it's an equipment technology that recycles the cleaner. So if someone's using 100,000 gallons of cleaners a year, we can help them maybe get down to 30,000 gallons if the technology works. So that's the next strategic step, saying we've got chemicals, now let's look at equipment. And then I'm really interested in figuring out how we wrap technology around all of that, so that, again, the value add to the customer is using less, probably better data around how they're doing it, and off they go improving their processes. Because if our customers go out of business, we go out of business.
Right, yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
Listen, if you're not helping your customers find a better way, someone else is going to help them find a better way. So, I know it's a really awkward conversation, same thing with my board, but sometimes I'm saying we have to be the ones putting ourselves out of business, because if we don't, somebody else will. Yeah. At least if we do it, we can be the new business instead of just the old business, right? Yeah,
and I was at a meeting a couple years ago up at Stanley for something, and one of the CTO guys was saying how they've got a whole division that tries to put them out of business. And it's smart, because at some point, maybe your products or your services become obsolete. So if you can think of it first.
It's absolutely way better on. Listen, I'm sure there's plenty of people that used to work at Kodak and Blockbuster Video that are thinking we should have been doing some of that. So let's talk about your, I'm just so interested how the company made so many generations. You say it's sort of basic, but there's nothing basic about lasting for 170 1,200.
I was going to do the math.
I know,
So
I'm sure.
1849, 200,
Yes, so 200 years minus, it's
177?
177 years. Yeah, there we go. So 177 years that's no small feat. So I mean, you're in Boston, not near the family.
Right.
How did you sort of learn? You kind of walk us through the story that gets you going, running that operation, and then relinked kind of the historical chain and how you're looking at continuing that.
Yeah, I mean, running the division in Boston was my way to learn the business on my own. Different types of chemistries, but same application. And so with working in Boston meant coming down to the headquarters and working more closely over time with my father. And so going from running a discrete division to being involved in the corporation as a whole, which is fascinating, right? So then you get to see the finance, the strategy, think about what is the next move so that we can be in business 10 years from now. The succession planning, which is complicated in any family business, generation 2, 3, or 4, it gets tough. But through all of that, it's really cool to go to our customers and see what they make, right? So we make great chemistry, and then our customers make amazing stuff and understand the supply chain of how you get from a little company in Waterbury, a customer of ours who may make a tiny part that goes into, I don't know what it may be, but a printed circuit board that goes into an airplane sometime. And that's fascinating and fun to be part of. And I feel like, again, we're making something, not at the end of the day. All my friends from business school who went to Goldman, like, what are they making? Money, but like,
that's about it.
There's no fun in that.
Yeah, there's definitely not. Yeah, that's so you when you started working with your dad, how did that transition plan sort of work out? Talk me through that.
Yeah, so he was very smart about it, had a lot of resources, professional development, and my cousin Andrew was CEO in between my father and me, and as sort of a placeholder.
Okay.
And again, when I took over 6 years ago, it was what my father did really well, and what it sort of instructed me in the business is be transparent, like no secrets, throw everything out there. Whenever you hit a difficult time, whether it's in a family business, whether it's with a customer, if you've been transparent throughout, then I think it's easier to get through the challenging times. So succession can be tough, but we talked about it, we planned it as best we could, and eventually.
Was it hard for him
like,
to
put me in, coach, right?
Yeah, you were ready.
Yeah.
So there's a little tension there. Was there? So you had a cousin. So I assume that's
my first cousin.
Your first cousin. So it's your aunt or uncle's kid,
exactly.
Right? And so I was like, hey, Andrew, can you just do this for a couple of years? How did that play out?
But again, that was the conversation from the beginning. So, and Andrew would say he was sort of the hired gun. It didn't matter that he was a family member. He was, but he wasn't, right? But his goal was to run the business until I was ready, assuming I,
got ready.
Yeah. And as I look at trying to get the business to generation number 7, I'm going to need that same thing.
So what was his pedigree that put him in a position to be able to do that?
All right, neposm. Right?
Okay, I wrote it down. That is the theme of this episode. If it's going to be titled, but I mean, he must have had. I mean, he wasn't working the shoe shine at the Waterbury train station, and they were like, "Hey, run this thing."
Not that I know of, but no, he'd worked in the business also as a college student and onward. Sold, so he knows the business as well as anybody, and did a great job.
And so, did he retire when you took over?
He actually left and went to work for Brenntag, which is the world's largest chemical distributor. So he went from, at that time, we were 50 million in sales to, I mean, there's a lot of B's in there, I mean, billions.
Right.
Yeah, and so said, I'm ready for something else, and the timing worked out well. So I took over, I think it was 6 years ago as CEO, and then about a year and a half ago as chairman, which in terms of transition was sort of the hardest for me because my dad came into work every single day and he was getting sicker. And right before one of the board meetings, he said, I think it's time for you to be chairman, which of course I always just wanted to be in charge. I wanted all of that. But then when he said it, I was like, that means
the end.
Yeah. And he died maybe 2 months later.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And, it's the wonderful part of the business is that I got to work with him and all the lessons that he told me when I was too stupid to understand them. I get them now. It's just, I think about them a lot. And think about going through the pandemic. when all of a sudden the world is shutting down and how are we going to survive? Well, my father was this boring old guy who kept a lot of cash and a good balance sheet and low debt. So I wasn't worried when everything shut down. My promise to the team was, we're not going to lay anybody off. Doesn't matter, we'll pay you, we'll get through this, because we've got a long-term business. We're answerable to ourselves, and we're financially sound enough to do that. So
That must have been a nice place to be.
yeah, it was great.
Is that something that he passed down to you? Like that sort of more, people use the word conservative. I feel like that doesn't have the right connotation to it, because I feel like it's smart, but
right.
yeah.
Right. And I would have described it the same way, Ari, that it was conservative and maybe old fashioned, but it was correct. And I look back at some of the decisions that he made and the acquisitions that he made, and they were pretty progressive and thoughtful. But it was also the lesson, not only have a good balance sheet, but think about your employees first. And I remember walking through the parking lot with him when I was 25 or something, and he noticed that David got a new car. He said, makes me feel really good when somebody's got a new car because they have a good living at Hubbard Hall. And I was like, yeah, whatever. But now I get it. Like,
Yeah.
I remember driving into the parking lot my first day as CEO, and it was this holy shit moment. Like, I've got 111 people reporting to me, or like I'm responsible for their livelihoods. And you know what? I want to make sure they have better cars, and I want to make sure they get trained better. And that I think being a small family business, the reason that we exist is different than another business that's going to be grown up to be spun off. And I had to think about that. We did an exercise about 3 years ago. Why do you exist? Like, it's the vision thing. Those terrible, terrible questions. So I hope you're not asking me the vision thing, because I'm leaving. No, but why do you exist? And I think about its expanding possibilities, and starting with our employees, and that they should, no matter what they do at the company, they should be better off for working at Hubbard Hall than anywhere else. And if they are there for a year, or like many people, their whole careers, you know, it's made a difference to them, and then our communities, and then our customers, and eventually our shareholders.
Right. Yeah, they get there eventually.
Yeah.
No, listen, there's so many things you said there which are so true. You know, I think about it all the time, right? You know, we've got 225 employees, and I don't just think about those employees, right? But they've got spouses, and they've got kids, right? And you know, some of them have grandkids, right? And so, you know, the work that we do and help people kind of get to their potential, and whether that's with us for a long time or with us for a short time, it makes a real impact. It's really humbling, and it's hard to see that at 25.
Right. And I think, and then until you're running the business, and so it can keep you up at night, right, worrying about the families, but it can also get you up in the morning, because we can have an impact, and it's measurable at times.
How do you think about threading the needle between running a conservative business, or I'm going to use a different word, running a smart business, right? One that says, hey, we're not teetering on the knife's edge on our balance sheet, where if things outside of our control, pandemic being one of the extreme black swan events, but they happen, right? That's called black swan events, not fluorescent green swans, right? I mean, because they do happen. So you want to be prepared, but at the same time, you've touched on things that are. You described your dad as making progressive acquisitions, and I think there's this interesting responsibility as the president, CEO, and chairman of a business, to kind of thread this needle between being safe enough to weather the inevitable storms that come. Some we create, some are created for us, and yet still leaning into growth, because if we don't lean into growth, we reference sort of the concept of putting yourself out of business, because if we don't lean in and take risks and do some acquisitions and push outside of our comfort zone, we're going to fail eventually. So it's sort of this, how do you think about that?
It's tough, and I think it's one of the things that I struggle with the most, where I am as a leader right now. So, you know, the pandemic was protect the business, don't fumble the ball, don't let anyone get sick, don't let anybody die, and protect the balance sheet. But now I've got to make bolder decisions. I've got to make a few bigger bets, and I don't want to ever bet the farm, right? So how do you find those investments that are bold enough that can help you get to the next generation, versus ones that may put you out of business? And I was involved about 3 or 4 years ago, all my failures, but a new technology coming out of Israel, and we spent a lot of money trying to launch it, and it was like plane into the ground, disaster, $1 million later, nothing. But you've got to take those risks at times to learn, to try new things, and hopefully one of them pans out.
Listen, one of the great things about smart bets in business, right, is that it's like a little bit like baseball, and I'm a big baseball fan. So
Sorry about that.
Yeah. For those that don't know, Molly's a big hockey player, ice hockey. But anyway, so, in baseball, right, it's such a great analogy for life and business because I think, we talk about Ted Williams still from the 1960s as hitting 400,
right?
Which is, right, 400, that's amazing. And when you think about 400 relative to what we normally think 0 to 100, that sounds like a lot. Right. But when you take a step back and go, well, 400 means I was good. I got a hit 4 out of 10 times. That means 6 times I failed, right? And that's a gold standard that was set 50 plus years ago. So business is a lot like that, right? As long as we make smart bets, we can make a lot of bad ones, and they hurt, no doubt about it.
Right.
But the big ones can pay off, right?
The big ones can pay off, and even the learning process that goes along with a failure, right? So I think probably you, like me, encourage people to take risks and fail in the business because that's how you learn. And then having a new idea or a new technology in the company creates ancillary excitement, and something else may come out of it. So it could be an off-ramp from what you were originally trying to do, but the end result is still growth or something new and different.
That's great. How do you think about, you've got to make your own bets, and you got to transition, and I feel like if I was in your shoes, that there would just sort of feel almost like the ghost of the Kellogg family past behind me, right? Like man, it's gone 172 years.
Better not screw it up.
Right?
Yeah.
You feel that a little?
Yeah, and that's where I may not be doing a good enough job right now, is saying, okay, I can take a few more risks. So I'm trying to challenge myself. Say, okay, got it. I think I know where the big danger zones lie, so I can then calculate the intelligent risks. And then to push me in that, I've got an amazing board of directors, outside board of directors, who do push me. And it's funny, I came back to them about 2 months ago with the decision I'd made about not buying a building somewhere for all the very good reasons. And they said, you're crazy, you're wrong, you're looking at this upside down. I said, okay, I'll go buy that building. but having a good sounding board when you're running a business or doing anything, to have not just an echo chamber, but real diverse, thoughtful opinions is helpful.
The board that you have, did you inherit it or did you build it?
And my father let me build it even through the transition before I was chairman. So we have probably 2 or 3 directors been there for a while, and then I mentioned Brenntag. So when the CEO of Brenntag was retiring, I said, Dad, let's call up Bill, and he said, he's never going to come. And here's Bill on our board, an amazing, amazing resource. And other people, I've got actually a guy I went to college with who, I think he was on the 6-year plan at Princeton, not the 4-year, runs a plating shop in Cleveland. Oh my God, you should talk to this guy. Bright guy, sort of customer base, and now he's on our board. So we've got a good board, thinking about who my next position is going to be and how do I model diversity and inclusion in our company. And we've got lots of women and lots of white people, and that's about it. So I'm trying to think, as I look at my next board position, can I get somebody who doesn't look just like me?
Yeah, how do you get some diversity? That's it's such a challenging thing to do. I have similar position, right? That our board looks pretty male and pretty white.
Right.
And I think a lot of it's not intentional, but it's sort of a product of your life. And
right.
So to
you go to the networks, right?
Yeah, you go to the people, because when I started building my network, I was like the young, I like to still think of myself as young, but not as much. But, I was sort of the young whippersnapper who just was like trying to get in anywhere. Right. And you sort of go to the people that you're familiar with and comfortable with, and leveraging who your parents know to answer a phone call or whatever, and give you a foot in the door. And pretty soon you sort of self-select and you look around and realize, oh man, my network looks a lot like me.
Right. Yeah, and I was talking to a woman, Karen Hines. She runs a diversity and inclusion firm in Waterbury. And how do you do it? And she said, you got to expand your network, and you've got to then start looking at events or forums where you've got a different population. So it's up to me. It's incumbent on me to be proactive about expanding my network.
And you got to expand it before you need it, right? Because I think that's the part when we expanded our board. it was like, it felt too late to start looking outside your network because then it felt forced.
Right.
I think the goal is, I think, right, expand the network early.
Right.
And then the opportunities sort of present themselves when an opportunity shows up and you go, I know who'd be perfect for
Right.
that.
Right.
But if you don't have that, it's hard.
No, and I think that's also maybe it's a little bit of a lesson in life that who said it, but half of life is just showing up, right? So any time you're going anywhere, you meet people and you meet people and you meet people, and all of a sudden you've got a network that you never knew you had, and
Yeah, got to open yourself up to opportunities, right? When you're young, got to say yes to a lot of things.
And when it's hard,
it's
hard.
It is very hard. So, as we're sort of wrapping up on time, I just want to talk a little bit more about your plans to Generation 7. So, and where I think this could expand, not just because there aren't a lot of businesses that have survived that long.
Right.
So I don't know how many people out listening to this are thinking, oh, I am making that exact same plan right now.
I'll call Molly.
Yeah, exactly.
Please
Molly
do,
and
by the way.
right. Yes. But I think that what a lot of us can take from this, and what we don't do enough of, I think in general, is plan transition.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I've heard from some of my mentors is, you're doing a good job when you're training the person to replace your job, right?
Yeah.
Because that means you'll give you capacity to then do something bigger and better, right? And don't be afraid of that. And sometimes this is exactly business succession. Sometimes you get to be CEO and we forget we still need to replace ourselves. So I'd just be really interested in your thoughts around that, and if you have a timeline on it that you think about, or how do you work that?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. One, from a philosophical management point of view, I worked in politics right after getting my very useless comparative literature degree, and worked with a bunch of failed Democratic candidates. But anyway, I was doing advance, right? So you go ahead of the candidate, set stuff up. And the guy told me, my first mentor said, on game day, you should have nothing to do. Meaning you should have built a staff, you should have redundancy. So same thing when you're leading the company. I should be able to get run over by a Zamboni, and the company's fine without me. So I think that's, running your business today.
Zambonis move really slowly, Molly.
I'm old and slow.
No.
Okay? Sometimes that's the day I'll hang up my skates, when I can't outskate the Zamboni. But right, so you got to build a business that's not solely dependent on you or your ideas or your charisma or whatever it is. And then, the transition is thinking about, I'll probably put in a president at some point in the next 5 to 10 years. So I get out of the day-to-day stuff, let somebody, hopefully that person then can run the business until I know if one of my children wants to do it. So I've got 4. So the odds are okay.
It's pretty decent.
Yeah.
Pretty decent. And they're getting to be age appropriate to start on the...
Right. I've got one interning for me this summer, so that's good. We're starting. Got to get those fingers in.
They got to experiment, right?
Yeah.
I mean, is that difficult? It's funny, you said something, which was, you talk about your dad walking through the parking lot at 25, and I mean, I literally can picture you rolling your eyes.
Right.
I
was really good at rolling my eyes.
Listen,
I've perfected it.
I've got a daughter too. She's getting good at it as well. But I can see it, and I remember rolling my own eyes, right? When I was sort of that age, So how do you think about introducing them and getting them excited and helping them to understand you have an opportunity here, even if you don't decide to do it?
Right.
Your opportunity here is so special.
Right. I think little by little. I mean, as a parent, if you tell your kids this is what you should do, then that won't happen. And I talk about the business a lot at home, and they're sort of interested in some of the strategic stuff and the chemical stuff. And then little exposure. It's like taking teaspoons out of a big old soup bowl. So then they can see what it's all about. And it's really interesting to have one of my daughters working now, and she's an environmental studies major, and I've put her on a project saying, why don't you map out what our footprint is today and our consumables, and can we reduce it? And she's thinking, well, you shouldn't even be selling chemicals. What are you doing? You should have a different business. And I said, no, what we're doing is important. Let's help reduce that impact. So I think with each child, figuring out what they're interested in, showing them different parts of the business, and then giving them a runway if possible.
Yeah, to try it out. I think there's a lot there, and I think that was really, really smart. Well, Molly, it has been awesome having you on. Are you ready for the rapid fire round of questions?
I don't know, but sure, go for it.
You ready? All right, here we go.
Where's the shot of tequila?
Red Sox or Yankees?
Oh my gosh. Really? Red Sox.
Starbucks or Dunkin'?
Starbucks.
Staycation or exotic destination?
Oh, is there a middle choice? Exotic.
Exotic. Do you have a favorite business book? And if not, maybe a favorite book. I mean, a comparative literature degree, you better have some books in your locker.
Anna Karenina. No. I go back to the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah, Stephen Covey. That's a good one.
Just begin with the end in mind. If that's all you remember, that's a good one.
Yeah, if anyone hasn't read that and listened to this, go get it. That is a must read. If you had to do something other than be the president, CEO, chairman, mother, person extraordinaire at Hubbard Hall, could be anything in the entire world, what would you do?
I might lack imagination because I have a hard time answering that. But I guess I'd put on my philanthropic, make the world better hat and go help refugees somewhere. I don't know. Something where, I could make the world a better place one person at a time. But I don't have a great answer for that because I love what I'm doing.
I hear you. I thought you might say starting right wing for the Boston Bruins. I thought that might have come out there.
Do you know, I've been sitting by my phone the last Olympic cycle waiting for them to call me up. But they haven't. So Ari, that dream is dead.
That dream is dead.
Yeah,
we're letting it go.
Yep.
We're moving it on.
Maybe future Zamboni driver. I don't know. It could be.
I love it. Molly, what's something that you learned early in your life or early in your career that you think's helped springboard you to all the success that you've had?
Oh gosh, I don't know if there's one lesson, one piece of advice, but having had opportunity to try and to fail, and then learning how to be resilient from that's made a big difference. So I don't have a fortune cookie answer for that one. Sorry.
What's something that if you could go back and you could tell young Molly, based on everything that you've experienced and learned, you go back and tell young Molly, 25-year-old Molly, and if she'd listen to you, you think it'd make a really big impact on her life and career, what would you tell her?
I think, and it's actually advice that I heard from my cousin Andrew, and when he was moving to Brentag, right? This is a big move, and he said, move towards what you're afraid of. And I'm like, there are times when I didn't do things because I was afraid, or I haven't, even now, like, I don't know when I kind of start this really complicated thing. It's scary. So when you're afraid, don't let that keep you from at least taking a step forward.
Lean in.
Lean in.
I really like that.
Yeah.
Molly, thank you so much for coming on. It has been really fun.
My pleasure, Ari.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by IT Direct.
As always, thank you so much for tuning in and spending some time with me today. My goal is to help build a community where we can learn and grow together. Your input, feedback, and engagement is critical to making that happen. Please do comment, like, and subscribe so more and more people can hear what we're doing and join our community of growth and success. Thanks so much for tuning in. Talk to you again soon.